When we were young, 2024, all album plays, 57 records from front to back, no matter how long or how short they are.
This would be a real doozy.
We here at the Emo Social Club are going through all of the records being played, and on this episode, we are talking about Say Anything's Is a Real Boy. Before we get into our opinions and our thoughts on this record, Lizzie, tell us a little bit about Say Anything, Maximum Bemis, friends of the pod, and a little bit about this album, Is a Real Boy.
This came out August 3rd, 2004 from Doghouse Records. When this album was being constructed, specifically mainly by Max Bemis and former drummer Cody Linder, Bemis basically put a lot into this development process. It was supposed to be like a narrative, story-based driven album, but it didn't really work out that way. And if you listen to a lot of the lyrics, you can hear where maybe could have been a little bit more of like a direct narrative point. The singles off of this album are While I Can Get Sexual Too and Alive with the Glory of Love. There's like kind of secondary releases. Those are Belt, Whoa, and Admit It. And I'm kind of surprised for Admit It because it's like almost a 7-minute song.
That was like AP Magazine, like editorial type thing. This is the weird one on the record, but also a very specific Say Anything sound.
This is what you're going to get, and please do not be shocked.
Yeah.
They also sold 20,000 copies independently. Sony label subsidy, J Records, signed them and then reissued the album in 2006. This is where we start to see a lot more critical acclaim and people getting it in the mainstream. This charted in 2007 at number 8 on the Billboard Heatseekers chart, and Alive with the Glory of Love as a single charted number 28 on the Modern Rock Tracks chart.
This is a 2-part album. For the purposes of this review, I didn't listen to the second part, even though that is the one that has Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too on it. We just saw them live.
We did.
They played the main part of the record, though they did play Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too near the end of the set. Kind of wish they played them all at the show. But for the purposes of this review, I think we're just going to focus on that first part, unless you decide to go on to that second part.
I didn't even realize there was 2 parts. I just listened to it on Spotify.
All right.
Because it didn't say like part 1 or part 2. I just said, let's listen to it.
We can just skip that second little bit that came with it. Just know that we love that. It's just that we're focusing on the main chunk, the main meat of the record here. Before we get into our opinions, though, make sure that you have subscribed to this channel and let us know what you think about Say Anything, Max Bemis, any of your thoughts on this record down in the comments below. Like it if you agree with us. Drop all the stuff that you got to drop, you know? Leave your thoughts behind. Do not continue on to the rest of the internet without leaving your thoughts here. We also have a playlist full of all the reviews that we have already done. All the reviews that are coming will go on there as well, so subscribing and following that playlist will help you know when those episodes drop. We also have a Patreon and YouTube memberships where you can see full versions of these reviews. You can also find full versions of all of our interviews from our second channel. We got all types of stuff. So check it all out. All the stuff's down there in the description. These are my thoughts on Say Anything's Is a Real Boy. The first time I heard this record was probably because of Alive with the Glory of Love. I don't know if it was MTV or if it was like something like that where I just like this style of music and this genre was popping off. And so of course I'm looking for other bands and I see Say Anything's music video, but I also hear the song on like, I think it was something to do with Warped Tour. I don't think it was on a sampler. I don't remember. It could have also been AP Magazine. Like there was a lot of reasons why this band was being promoted to me at that time. And it worked because I bought this record. I bought the CD from the store with my own hard-earned money.
Whoa.
This is the one where I'm like, no, I bought that CD. I went out and I purchased that to have. I still have it at somewhere. I think this record was like in my either like car CD player or in my headphones like for a long time. This is a record that at the time when I had it, like when I got it, like this meant a lot to me. I probably listened to it, both CDs, both the beginning and the second part, on repeat for like a couple of years, normal rotation with everything else. I absolutely love this record. I absolutely like got super into Say Anything because of this record. So you're about to hear a very positive review from me on this. This record is almost perfect to me.
Okay.
I hesitated and I re-listening to it, I was like, is this a perfect record? And I don't think so. Because Max has a lot going on here. There's a lot to this record. So I think that's the only reason keeping it. But I'd probably put it like 9 to 9.5 out of 10. Like this is just one of like my most formative records. I'm like, it's not getting less than a 9.
Okay.
Less than a 9 for me. Especially just because like, I mean, all the songs are like super good. But obviously it's like also the lyrics. It's also the lyricism of Max Bemis. it's always weird to say like this is like a narrative or there's a story behind it because it does feel very autobiographical. And I think Max has kind of said like it was a narrative, but it is also a narrative based on my personal experience and the things that I feel and what I go through. And I think that that was like a very new thing at this time where you have bands like The Used and My Chem that are a little bit like you don't really have storylines. They might be like things from their life, but like this was more like singer-songwriter like writing about their experience in a way that just felt more emo, I guess. It felt more of that like story and alternative side of it than like the emo and the high drama and the high melodrama of The Used and My Chem. So I think it just was at a time when I really wanted something else to add on to that. I never stopped listening to My Chem.
Of course.
I'm just like, I wanted something to balance that out. I wanted like all ends of it. And listening to this back, I really think this is one of the records that really, it kind of blended between emo and indie rock. It has a lot of sounds on it that sounded very almost The Strokes, almost like a lot of band like Death Cab, like a lot of bands in those realms. And it was kind of doing this thing where it was more emotional, more hard on your sleeve stuff, but it sounded like a lot of those indie bands. And I think that like where, you know, we started to have these discussions of is Death Cab emo or is all this stuff emo? It's like, well, there are bands like Say Anything that were doing these sounds that were really close. We're really towing that line between the two. And I honestly think that's one of the reasons why this album stands like for a very long test of time, because it doesn't have such a like emo feel to it.
Yeah.
It has a more alternative, it has a more indie feel to it. And I think that people identify with that even till now, which is why Say Anything can come back and do a record tour, play this live, and everybody's there. Everybody wants to hear this record because it meant a lot to a lot of people, especially me. My top 3 songs off of Is a Real Boy by Say Anything. Could have picked pretty much anything because this record is so good to me. I went with a couple that have lately been ones that I think are maybe the most fire on the record. Like if I was recommending what to listen to off of this record that people had never heard it before, or they'd only heard Alive with the Glory of Love and Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too, here are 3 other songs you could listen to. So I picked Whoa. It's the second song on the record, so it's right off the top. But I do feel like this song is maybe the most like pop oriented on the record as far as like choruses and vocals, audience participation, and the feel behind it. I think there's a lot of like really good, like when you get to the bridge where it's like, I can't get laid in this town, you're in. Like if you like are throwing your hands up and you're dancing, you hear this song and you're like, yes, this is great. This is a good band. This is a good song by a great talented band. So I recommend that one. The second one is Every Man Has a Molly, because I think this one has had a bit of resurgence lately.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think is great because like there's some weirdness around Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too, but I'm like, no, this one is the one where I'm like, you could have more concerns with. I don't think there's anything like wrong with this song. I think it's like, I'm going to talk shit about a girl, but I don't think that it does it in a way where it's not tongue in cheek or ironic or kind of poking fun at people who would say or do these things. I think it is very aware that it is not promoting this stuff. It is saying this is not a good person who did this thing. And I think the song itself has just this like indie grunge sort of sound to it that a lot of bands were not doing at that time. This song feels very different on this record, but it has that core in the same way that a lot of the other songs do. And I like it. I like the lyrics. I like jamming out to it at live. I like singing it along with people. It's fun.
I mean, it is a good one. That's a newer one that I've really kind of come back to a lot more. And I think, again, if we look at the lyrics, it is arguably quote unquote worse. But I think we all know at this point, ideally, that this is kind of like a satirical take.
Yeah.
So if people do take it more at like that face value, it's like, hey, let's look a little bit deeper here because it's not just that surface level. It's
the idea that like you see a villain doing something bad in a movie and you go, well, that guy's a bad guy. And you're like, yeah, he's the villain. He's supposed to be. Like they don't understand that like you can speak about something as the main character in a way that makes that main character do something bad and then has redemption or has like introspection on that thing. And so I don't think that like this or Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too really are like saying, wow, what a good guy I am. Like saying, yo, fuck Molly. It's more like saying like, no, I have these negative feelings and this experience happened to me and I'm not happy about it and I want to get that out. and then maybe realizing after the fact, like, that's not the most positive way to do that. But I had to go through that in order to learn how to be more positive about future moments like that, and also have a reckoning with that moment to, fix yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been teenagers or just people who are young adults who don't know how to cope with those types of emotions.
Yeah.
And I mean, if this is coming out during a time when a lot of people are teenagers, Max Bemis is most likely a teenager, young adults as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of us are going to react in like really terrible ways that ideally we don't do anymore. That we have ideally learned to move on from.
You don't learn not to touch the hot stove until you touch the hot stove. And then
Correct.
You go, I shouldn't touch the hot stove again. I'll get burnt. But you got to do it. I mean, you don't have to. Someone can tell you not to do it. But still, you understand the concept of I had to learn it so that I didn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what this song sounds like to me. Which also, like, I think adds a lot to, like, the song itself. Like, it's fun to sing when you go, oh, good thing that we don't act like that anymore. But we can have fun for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Hollywood Undead comes on, you lose feminism for a minute. For a third song, I could have picked a lot of different ones. I picked Spider Song, which I think on this listen just really stood out to me for the chorus and all that. I think there's a lot of songs on this, like Slowly Through a Vector, Chia Like I Shall Grow, Orgy of Critics, Feudal. Like, a lot of these have similar feels to it that are not like, the main singles, the ones that everybody knows. And I would recommend all of them. It's What Say Anything is and What Say Anything does with the choruses, but like, they're not all the exact same song. They have really good choruses. They have really catchy parts. The lyrics are great. Like, you can really dive in and get something back from it. I think you're seeing yourself in those moments, and he's describing so many different things across this record. But I think just Spider Song on this re-listen was just like, I'm really enjoying like singing I'm the Spider, I guess. My least favorite track from Say Anything's Is a Real Boy. Again, I love this whole record. But the one that I would skip, and the one that I would say it's not a 10 out of 10 perfect record to me, is Yellow Cat, Red Cat. It's a long song. There's a lot of different like ups and downs in it, but I do think the start of it being slow and a little bit like melodramatic and a little bit soft, and that it's like I want to get back to more of the heaters that come right after it, and I don't always want to wait. So sometimes when I'm re-listening to this record, I do skip Yellow Cat, Red Cat. Even though I do like the song, I like that Max Bemis can tell a story. I like that he doesn't worry about the time that it takes to tell that story. I like that he can take you through so many moods. And I like that when he has a longer song, he still puts more words in it. It's not a lot of repetition. So it's a lot of like new thoughts and new ideas through the like 6-minute song. But if I'm listening to this record for fun, I'm probably skipping it just because I want to keep the energy up. And there's a lot of higher energy songs on this record. But all in all, it's like, yeah, I literally... If you were like, this is the last song you get to listen to, I'd be like, all right, I'm not going to turn it off.
You're say, I guess it's here.
Because you're going to kill me after I listen to it. It's the last song I ever get to listen to before I die.
Damn. That's melodramatic.
On my deathbed, and I'm like, with each scummy, crummy hour of each scummy, crummy day.
Then you die.
I love that song. Never mind. I put too much shade on it. I like that song, so fuck it. I like that song too.
Okay.
No least favorites.
Here are my thoughts on Is a Real Boy by Say Anything. This crazy thing happens when you are in college in 2015 through 2017. You join the cult that is college radio, and then you have music that just comes up because it is already pre-selected and is printed out on a log. So Say Anything's Alive with the Glory of Love played during my college radio shows. After I heard Alive with the Glory of Love, I was like, I really like this song. It was very different for me at the time as somebody who had pivoted from listening a lot more of pop punk music at the time to more indie rock at the time, because that was a little bit more exciting, like sonically for me. Also, when I finally sat down and listened to the lyrics more, I'm like, wow, this is a really interesting social commentary that I hadn't seen in that music scene during that time. Original listening to this full album, though, back when I was in college, when I was like early 20s, probably like 2021, I was very off-put by how everything was structured because it's very more spoken word forward. It kind of caught my ear, and it took me a little bit to probably revisit this again, because I remember when I first listened to it, it wasn't my personal vibe. I did like the singles that were off of it. Re-listening to it now, I understand it a little bit better at 29 than at 2021. I think it is definitely one of those things where you go back and you listen to it and then you get more substantive qualities from it. I did really like it. I forgot how long it was.
Max can't stop. Max has so many words.
I know.
And he's got so much to write about.
I realized that. So
I will also say, speaking on like the age side of it, there's some artists like that. I'm literally wearing a Frank Turner shirt right now, but I think there's artists like that, especially guys, especially dudes, who write a lot of these songs about like being dudes and like growing up, and like it's a little bit of like the Holden Caulfield effect of like I am an adult. Yeah, but it's like coming of age, becoming an adult, and trying to find your place in the world. There's a lot of these artists who write that kind of stuff. I think this is kind of an album for guys, like an album written by a guy for a guy's experience. And I'm glad that women like it and women can identify in it. But I certainly would understand if women were like, I don't like this because it doesn't appeal to me. And it's like, yeah, because it's kind of written about like the male experience. It's good that like there are so many good like songs on it, like the music of it is good and the catchiness is good. And I definitely think there's like a lot here that women can identify with for sure. I also would not be surprised if, you know, it's like it took me a little longer as a woman to get to know this record, whereas a dude, you're like, dude, I'm a teenager and I needed this fucking record.
I think it's really this real world crudeness in the vein of masculinity where you listen to it as like a younger male and you latch onto it because you're like, yeah, I hate this girl who rejected me. I'm dealing with a bunch of hormones. I'm going through life and I really don't know what's going on. That makes sense. Where, you know, me as a 21-year-old, I'm like, I don't know about this. I don't know, homie.
Yeah.
The Catcher in the Rye effect is that you bring up Holden Caulfield. It's one of my favorite novels. I'm so nerdy about it, so this is my parallel right now. You triggered something terrible in me.
I've said it with a lot of these bands, and especially a band like Frank Turner, where I'm like, you are describing the same thing as Holden Caulfield went through.
I do this thing every year where I reread Catcher in the Rye to see if I like it more or if I hate it more, if opinion has changed, because I've changed every year of my life. And now I can see like how the world is broken down from this one character's perspective. And I think this is the same way with this album. It's something you re-listen to maybe once a year, and then you say, how do I feel now as this newly aged person reflecting back on this? So I think it's a really good kind of measure to see where you are as a person. And I mean, that could be good or bad depending on how you see it.
Depends on what you've done.
Depends on what
how
you're
you
doing.
feel about it now. If you're like, I'm trying to find my place in the world, and you don't have a little bit of grace for yourself to learn that, grow up and go, you know what? I don't like what I did then, but I like what I do now because I learned from that. Good.
Now, here are my top songs from Is a Real Boy by Say Anything. I did really like An Orgy of Critics. This was a lot heavier, and I like a nice, sick bass riff.
Yep.
A heavy bass gets me every time. I think that this like really starts to introduce like this aggressive style that can be done with this band, and they execute it really well. And I think the thing here is that we still have the OG spoken word, which is kind of more inherently tied to what Say Anything is as a band and what they incorporate very often. It melds together really well into this heavier type of song. You know, maybe some people may hate it or like it. I think they really use it well here, and they kind of elevate this song by doing that. My second, it's a metaphor fool.
So that is on the second part.
Okay, yeah, I just listened to it straight through.
That's fine.
That's all I.
No, it's all
They
good.
didn't
That
break
song,
it up.
because that song is a fucking banger.
Yeah, no.
That's why I'm like, I don't know. They didn't play it live, and I was pissed. I was like, come
sorry.
on, where's fucking, it's a metaphor, fool. Fuck you.
So I went on the second side, and Brian's mad about it. But
I'm not mad. It's good. It's so good.
It's a metaphor full. This reminded me in the vibe and the sound of what I would say is like this. It's really derived from that OG emo sound. And it's just where it's apparent that they are a band that takes a lot of influences from OG emo, from indie, from alt rock at the time, pop punk, and what we had as like that mall emo during the time. And they blended it really well. It's really straightforward, which I think is good. It's like a good palate cleanser once we get through this album. I think that it flows really well because it's also reminding the audience and like listeners that, hey, let's be realistic about what this album means. And then my third is also from the second side.
Damn it. You went and did it, man.
I did. Metal Now.
Yeah,
I thought it was
so
like
good.
weird, niche. I don't like to use the word violent, but if you listen to the lyrics, you're like, that's kind of weird because it sounds very like happy-go-lucky or like I'm just going to like dance around. But I like that kind of lyrical style in music. I don't know why. It made me feel like I would have this in like a Tony Hawk Pro Skater game. And that's also what got me into it. I think the different guitar work really helps elevate it. Even though it is a shorter song as well, is still prolonged in different ways because of the lyrical content and because of the instrumental backing as well. I think both of these are under like 3 minutes. It still feels like a really long cohesive song like everything else on the record. So it just makes sense.
Yeah, it's disappointing they didn't play this second part live. I chose not to go with the second half because I was like, well, they didn't play it live, so we're talking about the When We Were Young version of this, and they're not going to do the second part. But I do think like the second part has some fucking insanely good Say Anything songs.
My least favorite track from Is a Real Boy by Say Anything. It's going to have to be the one you also said, Yellow Cat / Red Cat. I understand why in the beginning of this instrumental, to get us into this song, why a lot of indie kids also like this. It's experimental in the beginning. I usually like that, but you lose me after a minute. It just starts to get a little bit all over the place for me, and then it kept dragging on at the end of the day. It was fine, but I would skip this if I was in control of the aux, and I was like, hey, yeah, we can just move on to the next one.
The interesting thing about like the longest songs in this record being Yellow Cat, Red Cat, and Admit It is that Admit It doesn't suffer from the same things that Yellow Cat does, because it is like a loud, angry song where clearly the reason that the track lasts so long is because he's doing this like indie diatribe about indie culture and the early 2000s culture. And you're like, I want to hear everything you got to say. I want to hear all this. And like, as a fan and as somebody who likes to go to shows and say every word, you want to learn every word. You want to be like, yeah, I also want to yell at that guy who likes the Strokes a little too much. So I do think that one doesn't suffer from the same thing, because Yellow Cat is such a slower song and it kind of goes up and down and it has like these different like movements in it, I would say. But in the case of Admit It, it's just like a punk song that has a lot of lyrics in it and has like two different choruses.
It brings it together. I do like Admit It. I almost did put that on my favorite one because I do really like it.
Those were our thoughts on this record, but we are not the only ones with thoughts on this record. It's been out for 20 years, so a lot of thoughts have come out about this record. So we went to Amazon and to some other critic websites to find some other people's thoughts on Say Anything's Is a Real Boy, and I'm going to read some Amazon reviews, which should be great. This first review is from Paxson T. Bacchus. 5-star review from March 16th, 2018. The soundtrack to my high school angst.
Cute.
I learned about life from this album. I cuddled with my first love while listening to this shit. It rang in my ears while I did homework and thought about my place in life. Hell, I think I lost my virginity with Bemis wailing self-deprecating prose in the background.
Is that a flex or no?
Nope. That's a cry for help. This review is from Michael Barrera from June 12th, 2006, a 5-star review. This is what emo was supposed to sound like at the turn of the century. Bear in mind that this album was originally released in 2004, but now has been re-released with some new bells and whistles. So without further ado, I take credit for the following review, for regardless of whether it or not it is a re-release, will undoubtedly go down as one of the best albums of the year, but one of my personal favorites of the last 10 years. The scene is dripping with irony from top to bottom. Thrift store connoisseurs decked out in flamboyantly colored kicks and palest shoes adorn the landscape. Cheesy synths have taken over indie music, and wailing 80s heavy metal riffs overflow out of the retro-loving chalice of modern music in search of a definite meaning in reviving the old. Irony is the new pink, and pink is the new black. Let's all together and face it, people. It all comes down to the hipster New York fashion crazes and high school politics. I find it somewhat odd that punks can be in a sort of way as pretentious and conceited as all those jocks and preps that most everyone else blames for ruining their teen years. It's all about being cool, making sure that you say the right words to be considered the coolest. It's a continual progression, hoarding deeper and deeper into the trough of egotistical self-absorption. Say anything. 18 months, a few visits to psychiatric hospitals, and hundreds of canceled shows later, Max seems fit and ready to bring his fans what they desperately deserve: new Say Anything tracks. Over a year after Is a Real Boy's initial release, major label J Records took this pop rock gem and released it the masses en masse.
En masse?
The masses en masse.
Okay.
Taco Bell, live masse. Only this time, it came updated with 7 new tracks. Though they may have a little bit sleeker production, the new tracks show not only what Bemis has retained in his self-deprecating, tongue-in-cheek songwriting capabilities, which are strikingly just as convincing and convicting, but that it has gotten better as time has elapsed. This guy is writing both like fine and then writes awful in like the same sentence.
Like misspelled, clearly misspelled. Yeah.
There's a lot of missing punctuation and like using words in the wrong format. And but then he like writes like really good sentences, and I'm like, what's happening? You got drunk in the middle, and then sobered up to try to finish. I won't say anything. Damn, I am a funny guy about the actual album itself. Aside from if you don't own it, you need to own it. Do not download it or get it from a friend, because that would be not doing Mr. Bemis any justice. It is not worth. It is worth whatever money Target or Best Buy is charging. And along with these 7 new tracks, you have no excuse not to get it. The second disc, entitled Was a Real Boy, kicks off with Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too, a track you might have heard as you entered the band's website. Bemis picks right up where he's left off, chronicling tales of internet and phone sex. You're too young to be this empty. That's the lyrics, whatever. But throughout most of this disc, Bemis appears to be lashing out about his recent success and his reaction to it. Little Girls tells of his disdain for little girls who do not fear him, though he feels they should. Total Revenge tells about Bemis' stay in hospitals and their constant supervision. And I Will Never Write an Obligatory Song About Being on the Road and Missing Someone is about, well, duh, that the title implies smartly. If you have never heard Say Anything before, now would be an excellent time to get on this. You certainly will not regret it. If you have been a fan for a while, it is something that will re-wet your palate. If you are a fan of Is a Real Boy, this is not the new Say Anything full length. Though you might gripe and groan about having to re-buy the CD to get the 7 extra tracks, they are worth it. And by now, if you've played your cards right and have listened the hell out of that CD, you're probably due for a new one anyway. And let us hope we don't have to wait long. This is what emo was supposed to be at the turn of the century.
Whoa. We got through that one.
This is for Yanni K from March 9th, 2005. 1-star review. I'd give it 2 stars if not for Alive. Wow. I'm a mite surprised at the general orgasming over this record on this board. While I don't own the record, I have heard it many times in my friend's car. He's a big fan and general emo fiend. From the cuts I've heard, which I would guess is most of them, Say Anything is the single most derivative and musically trite emo punk band I've ever heard. Yes, all the tracks are catchy as hell, except for Admit It, which is a spoken word litany of everything wrong with being a hipster. But they're catchy as hell in the way that Gavin DeGraw song about not wanting to be anything other than whatever it is he's been trying to be is. In other words, they're annoying, and they will continue to annoy you all day after a listen. If that was the extent of my problems with Say Anything, they'd be maybe getting 2 stars. You know, for being kind of catchy and having such lyrics as Come Pollinate Me, which are slightly more amusing than anything Stray Light Run could ever pull off. But no. Say Anything Is a Real Boy does not get that extra star because it contains one of the most ridiculous and offensive emo songs I have ever heard, Alive with the Glory of Love. Since every other review seems to have declared it a personal favorite, I'll assume that you already picked up on the fact that it is a love song set during the Holocaust. To pull this sort of thing off, you need a great deal of tact, understatement, and an understanding of the events, as in Life is Beautiful, or Mel Brooks' evil sense of anti-Nazi irony in The Producers. Say Anything, being an emo band, can't have either the sense of perspective needed to be respectful or the sense of fun to be truly disrespectful. Instead, they write a catchy emo punk tune and adapt it to the largest genocide in history. Not even Say Anything can say things like Our Treblinka is alive with the glory of love, and they certainly can't make rousing shout-along choruses to them. I believe the story is that Max Bemis' family was in the Holocaust, and this is a story about his family.
Yeah. I don't think Homie did the research.
Well, he doesn't own the record. He only listens to it in his friend's car.
You know, as we've come to find out, haters are really all out there, but they're just giving everyone the views.
Imagine being like, I have never bought this record, but I'm going to go on this website where everyone has talked about their experience after buying this record, and then say, I don't own this record.
But I need to let you know from only listening to it with in the car with my friend.
Yep.
Here are some critic reviews. The first one comes from Yahoo Music, February 2006 by Rob O'Connor.
Yahoo!
Oh my God, that's a throwback. Now, there's no star rating. It just says favorable. Max Bemis had grand plans. He played most of the instruments, leaving the drums to Cody Linder, and wrote all the songs for his band Say Anything's debut album, all the while imagining he was writing a concept album about a deluded indie rock singer, consequently named Max Bemis, who believes he's changing the world with his overtly confessional songs that ask grand questions about humanity and subsequently catch on with audiences and critics who ordain him a Christ-like figure within the rock community. It only leads Bemis to ask grander questions about the nature of fame and fortune, and then to realize that he's just another ordinary guy who likes to sing. This album isn't that imagined album, but it exists in pieces, and much of what's here smacks of emotional imbalances modified by a healthy diet of absurdity and humor. Every Man Has a Molly is a breakup song worthy of its I'll Kill Myself conclusion, and Chill Like I Shall Grow is a self-empowerment anthem for people who think self-empowerment is really gross. Now there's a concept. This next one comes from Punk News, written by Benz, August 2004. So the original release, 4.5 out of 5 stars. The scene is dripping with irony. Thrift store connoisseurs decked out in flamboyantly colored kicks and Jesus is my homeboy t-shirts adorn the landscape. Cheesy synths have taken over indie music and wailing 80s heavy metal riffs overflow out of the retro-loving chalice of modern music. Irony is the new pink and pink is the new black. Is this the same one?
That's the same fucking review.
Is it? Did he just copy and paste his Punk News review?
Michael Barrera.
Well, this is Ben's. Oh, shit.
It's literally the same goddamn review. Are you kidding me?
Well, now we know Benz's real name.
Benz, we got you.
Hey, got
We caught you.
You played yourself.
Wee woo, wee woo. We're at your door.
Well, I guess it's certified now.
He did 5 stars on Amazon, man.
He did 4.5 on Punk News. So what's the truth?
What is the truth?
What's the truth?
Is it the whole thing? Like, or is it just that
copied
beginning?
some of. I copied and pasted. I took out some, but it probably is.
Oh no, maybe they just stole the beginning. That's insane.
That's crazy.
Michael Barrera stole that review.
But who am I to criticize other people for how they act?
No.
Okay. So they literally just stole the first.
That beginning part they stole.
That's insane.
And he says at the beginning of his review, remember, so without further ado, I take credit for the following review for regardless of whether or not it is a re-release, one undoubtedly go down. So the other side of this could be that he revisited the review and then talked about the second part.
And then he added the half star.
And he added the half star because he's now 7 new tracks. So it could be that he copied the first part of his own review. But I also think Michael Barrera is a fucking scam artist. Michael Barrera, you're a fucking con.
Jesus.
How dare you? How dare you copy your
Your
punknews.org review, a website that has nothing if not integrity, and you copied it. You plagiarized yourself. You plagiarized and you played yourself. Those were reviews from Amazon. Those were reviews from one guy on Amazon on stealing Punk News' reviews.
That was so crazy. What the
and our thoughts on this record. But we have one more question to answer. Would we recommend seeing Say Anything's Is a Real Boy at When We Were Young 2024? And they just did a full nationwide tour. Likely people have already seen this if they were passionate about it. So I do feel like if you were unable to see that tour, then yes. I think that we will likely see another band short of this band playing, open. There's no other band we're seeing at this time. I'll go see this for sure because I know every word to it. I enjoy this album. It is not the second half. It was just the first beginning of it. So everything through Admit It featuring Wow, I Can Get Sexual Too. It's still good, still great.
Yeah.
There are some great songs on that second part, but obviously the record is just that first part. So I think it's worth seeing if you did not see the tour. Also, why weren't you at the tour? What were you doing? Were you busy? But I recommend it if you didn't see it. I recommend it if you like this record. I recommend seeing Say Anything play this record in full just to have that on the old notch in your belt. So the first song on the record.
Oh my God. Yeah, I agree. If you haven't seen us on the tour that it's currently on and is just wrapping up as well, I think you goofed. I will most likely be at another show, but if you love Say Anything, if you goofed and you missed this, absolutely go and see it because it is a really good time. Max Bemis is a really great performer and entertainer, so I don't think you're going to be upset that you went to go see this set by any means.
That's where we will be at When We Were Young. Where will you be? Will you be watching this? Did you go to the tour? Are we right? Are we wrong about this? If you're Michael Barrera, please don't tell me anything. You're a plagiarist. You're a fucking plagiarist. I don't know. I don't know you, but the cops are at your door. Let us know in the comments what you think. We are going through every record on this, so make sure to subscribe and find out what we think about your favorite record, if it already happened or if it's coming down the line. So you got to know when it happens. But until When We Were Young Fest 2024, until Say Anything, and until Is a Real Boy, we'll see you there.